In about a month, Charles Oliveira will be fighting Ilia Topuria for the vacant lightweight title, and I've been seeing a lot of people overlooking Charles Oliveira and saying Ilia will just steamroll him. There's a narrative being made that Charles Oliveira has fallen off, but in my opinion, I do not believe Charles Oliveira has fallen off, and if he has, not nearly as much as people are saying. Because if you think about it, skill-wise, Charles is still incredibly skillful. He's just much more patient now and isn't running headfirst into punches. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about how I do not believe that Charles Oliveira has fallen off and how a lot of people are overlooking him when it comes to fighting Ilia Topuria. And I'll even be talking about how he was not able to finish Michael Chandler, whereas when Paddy Pimblett fought him, he absolutely mauled him and finished him. Hi, this is Future Kevin right now, and I'll make this quick. This video is a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, and it's kind of split into two halves. The first half is where I talk about how I don't think Charles Oliveira has fallen off, and in the second half, I talk about how I think he's going to be able to beat Ilia Topuria. The timestamps are right here, so go watch whatever one you want first, and let's get right back to the video. First, let's talk about the biggest things that people like to bring up when they talk about Charles Oliveira falling off. And that is, yes, Charles Oliveira has lost twice in the past couple of years. He lost to Islam Makhachev, and then he barely lost to Arman Tsarukyan. But let's break down these two losses for a couple of minutes. Let's start with Islam Makhachev. In this fight, Islam was able to knock down Charles Oliveira and submit him in the second round. It's very clear that for this fight, Charles's game plan was just to rush in and smother Islam Makhachev, and that clearly didn't work. In my opinion, I think the only way someone's going to be able to defeat Islam Makhachev is if they survive until the later rounds where Islam gets a little tired and a little more sloppy with his takedowns, so then he'll be easier to either knock out or submit. This is what Dustin Poirier did. He was patient with Islam Makhachev. Granted, he was only patient because of the takedown threat, but he took Islam Makhachev to the 5th round, and in that 4th round, Dustin was hitting Islam with some very clean shots. I think that if Charles Oliveira had a rematch with Islam Makhachev, and Charles was much more patient like he was in the Michael Chandler fight, that fight would turn out a lot differently this time. But then again, who knows, we'd have to see to find out, but I don't think that rematch will ever happen. But in their fight, Charles Oliveira was just running towards Islam the entire time, and Islam was constantly on the back foot just hitting Charles with good shots. Plus, it's Islam Makhachev. Are we really going to say that Charles Oliveira is washed after he just lost to the greatest lightweight at the time, right now? And plus, Islam is inbred, and he is a weight bully, so... But anyways, Charles Oliveira loses to Islam Makhachev, and then he fights Beneil Dariush, which he knocks out in the 1st round, and then he barely loses to Arman Tsarukyan. This is going to sound like insane cope, but Arman got so lucky in that fight. During that fight, he was literally the luckiest man on the planet. So in round 1, Charles Oliveira gets Arman in an extremely tight guillotine, but then Arman Tsarukyan's shorts aren't tight enough on him, so they start to slide off, and since Oliveira's legs are wrapped around Arman Tsarukyan's waist, when Arman's shorts fall off, Charles Oliveira's legs go with the shorts, making it much easier for Arman to escape the guillotine. And then again, at the very end of round 2, Oliveira has Arman in this armbar / triangle type thing, and it would have finished Arman, but then the bell rang and saved him. And then the exact same thing just happens in round 3. Charles Oliveira has Arman in a submission, but then Arman gets saved by the bell once again. Arman Tsarukyan got saved 3 times in that fight, and it was very clearly like a skill versus strength type fight, and strength was just able to do just enough to win. And come on, it's so obvious that Arman Tsarukyan is on some type of juice. If you don't think he is, then I don't know what to tell you. Just take one look at him, and it's pretty obvious. And pretty much everyone agrees that the entire narrative for that fight is if it was a 5-rounder, Charles Oliveira would have won. So, in his last 4 fights, Charles Oliveira lost to Islam, knocked out Dariush in the 1st round, barely lost to a juiced-up Arman Tsarukyan, and then absolutely dominated Michael Chandler back in November. Let's actually talk about that Michael Chandler fight. Back when it happened, everyone was saying that that was the best Charles Oliveira we have ever seen. And then when Michael Chandler fought Paddy Pimblett and got finished, everyone is now just discrediting that win because Paddy Pimblett was able to finish him in the 3rd round, whereas Charles Oliveira took him to a 5-round decision and almost got finished in the 5th round. But even though these fights weren't that far apart, I do believe that it was 2 very different Michael Chandlers fighting. For the Oliveira fight, Chandler's confidence was through the roof. He thought he was going to finish Charles and then fight Islam for the belt. So when that didn't happen and Charles destroyed him for 4 rounds straight, his confidence plummeted. Now he's fighting Paddy Pimblett, who's ranked 12th. And in the Oliveira fight, even when Charles Oliveira was piecing up Michael Chandler against the cage, Michael Chandler was still throwing massive shots back at Charles. But in the Paddy Pimblett fight, pretty much any time Paddy touched Michael Chandler, Chandler just ran away and ran across the octagon. I swear Michael Chandler ran away like 5 times during that fight. And let's not forget that Michael Chandler was cheating so much in that Oliveira fight. Yes, he kicked Paddy in the balls, but in the Oliveira fight, he poked Charles in the eye like 3 times and the ref never stopped it. He was grabbing onto the cage, hitting Oliveira in the back of the head around 10 times, and he was illegally holding on to Charles Oliveira's gloves multiple times throughout the fight, leading to his arms being gassed, and that's why Chandler had that big moment in the 5th round. And I could be wrong on this, but I actually don't think that punch that Chandler landed in the 5th round did nearly as much damage as a lot of people are saying. Yes, it was a very good shot, but if you look closely, you can see that Chandler eye pokes Oliveira right after landing that shot, and that's what causes Oliveira to back away. The ref wasn't stopping the fight because of the eye poke, and it obviously bugged Oliveira because he was rubbing his eye and he couldn't see out of it, so that's why he had to walk away from Michael Chandler because he had to recover from that eye poke. But then again, who knows? Maybe that shot actually hurt Oliveira really badly, but in my opinion, I just don't think it did as much as a lot of people think, because Oliveira's legs didn't even go like wobbly from it. He just couldn't see. Now let's talk about one more thing before we get into the Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria fight. In the Chandler versus Oliveira fight, Chandler was being a lot more patient and not just running in head first like he usually does. Charles was doing the same thing, but for different reasons. Chandler was being super patient and safe because last time he fought Charles Oliveira, he absolutely destroyed him in the 1st round, but then at the very start of the 2nd round, Chandler let his guard down once and Oliveira clipped him and put him away. That's why Chandler was being super safe, because he knew that at any moment, Oliveira could just hit him once and then knock him out. And for the Paddy Pimblett fight, that's why Chandler was taking a lot more risks and kind of just running towards Paddy Pimblett until he started running away after Paddy countered him. I mean, just look at the 3rd fight between Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman. In their 2nd fight, Usman was destroying Leon for a lot of the fight, but then in the 5th round, Leon just threw that head kick and knocked out Kamaru Usman immediately out of nowhere. So in the 3rd fight, that's why Kamaru Usman was being like super patient and super defensive and kind of just second guessing himself, because he knew at any moment Leon Edwards could just throw a head kick and knock him out just like he did in the 2nd fight. Once someone just knocks you out of nowhere, it completely changes the mental battle of the fight. And in hindsight, Leon Edwards is absolutely trash, so Kamaru Usman should have won that 3rd fight, but he was second guessing himself and he was afraid. But anyways, that's enough of the Michael Chandler stuff. Now let's talk about Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria. Charles Oliveira is by far Ilia Topuria's most dangerous opponent so far. Charles Oliveira is much more powerful than anyone Ilia has ever fought. And Charles Oliveira has better ground game than anyone Ilia has ever fought. And let's not forget that Ilia Topuria was getting out-grappled by Bryce Mitchell for majority of that fight. There is also going to be a big height and reach difference. Charles has much more reach than Max, and Max was hitting Ilia so much in that fight. If Ilia takes that many shots from Charles, Ilia won't be taking them nearly as well. Now, a lot of people are saying, yeah, Charles Oliveira is pretty good, but all Ilia Topuria needs to do is land that one shot to knock him out. But they also act like that hasn't been the same story for every other person Charles Oliveira has fought over the past couple of years. Oh yeah, Charles is super good, but Dustin just needs to land that one shot. Justin just needs to land that one shot. Chandler just needs to land that one shot. Everyone needs to land that one shot, but no one's been able to do it and knock him out immediately. And you have to immediately flatline Charles Oliveira, or he can just roll on his back and he's going to be completely fine. And we also don't know how hard Ilia Topuria will be hitting up at lightweight. The lightweights might be able to take it a lot better than the featherweights did. They even talk about this in the MMA Guru and Mighty Mouse podcast. Mighty Mouse talks about that one guy who was knocking everybody out, and then when he moved up a weight class, everyone was like, oh, don't get hit by him, he'll knock you out. But then when he was hitting his opponent with big shots, it wasn't doing anything. And then when his opponent went to his corner, they said, why are you taking those shots? And he said, that guy hits like a bitch. This could just be the same thing with Ilia Topuria. He could just hit as hard as Justin Gaethje or Dustin Poirier. And no one's grappled with Ilia Topuria. So if Charles Oliveira grapples with him for like 2 rounds and Ilia gets tired, he might not be hitting nearly as hard as he used to since he has tiny arms. Yes, Ilya Topuria flatlined Jai Herbert, but that's Jai Herbert. He's not nearly as big as any of the other lightweights. Plus, Jai Herbert is trash. Don't let Joe Rogan mislead you. He's terrible. It's honestly embarrassing for Ilya that he almost got knocked out by him. I also see a lot of people saying that Ilya Topuria will be able to hang with Charles Oliveira on the ground, and in my opinion, if you're saying that, that is just pure delusion. Ilya Topuria fans love to say that Ilya has amazing grappling because he submitted his first couple of opponents. Well, do you want to know who else has submitted their first couple of opponents? Dustin Poirier, and Dustin's grappling isn't anywhere near Charles Oliveira or Islam Makhachev. We know what happens when Dustin gets put against someone who has good grappling. Dustin always loses. Ilya Topuria might honestly just be a smaller version of Dustin Poirier when he moves up to lightweight. And like I said earlier in the video, Ilya Topuria got out-grappled by Bryce Mitchell for the majority of that fight, but Ilya Topuria fans only remember the last 40 seconds of that fight when Ilya Topuria finally out-grapples him after hurting him bad on the feet. And Charles Oliveira is such a four-dimensional fighter. With Ilya Topuria, you just have to worry about his boxing, and then every once in a while, he'll throw a calf kick. But with Charles Oliveira, you need to worry about punches, kicks, teeps to the bodies, knees to the body, flying knee, submissions. You need to worry about so much more with him. You have to worry about elbows. He literally throws everything at you. He will pretty much be doing exactly what Max Holloway did, but it'll hit a lot harder and just have more variety. Bro, screw this. Charles Oliveira is going to win this fight. When this fight first got announced, I was like, oh, bruh, come on. We're going to have to see Charles Oliveira flatlined on the floor. But no, after I'm talking about this and thinking about it, I honestly think Charles Oliveira is going to get that title back. Now, this video could age very badly if Ilya Topuria goes out there, pieces up Charles on the feet, and then submits him. But I don't think that's going to happen. But anyways, that's where I'm going to end this video. Let me know down in the comments below if you agree with me or if I'm just some delusional Charles Oliveira fan. That is possible, but I feel like everything I've said today is at least somewhat true. And if you made it this far into the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. And if you want to see more videos like this, I have a lot. From exposing the dark side of Khabib to explaining on why I believe that Jon Jones has been to a Diddy party. And the more stuff he says recently, the more I believe it. So go check those videos out. I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.